It's been a violent and deadly weekend in Ukraine. Russia continued its pattern of attacking civilians with a missile attack on neighborhoods in the city of Zaporizhzhia overnight. Local officials say at least 13 people were killed. This comes less than a day after a major attack on a Russian bridge. It was the only bridge that connected Russia to the Crimea Peninsula and was used as a major supply line for Russian troops. Vladimir Putin is now blaming Ukrainians for the attack and calls it terrorism. Recent setbacks in Ukraine are what led President Biden to warn that Russia's threats to use nuclear weapons puts us closer to Armageddon than any other time in the last 60 years. This morning on MSNBC, National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby says the threat is real, if not imminent.
The stakes are high right now, and that's what the president was speaking to. We have to take that rhetoric seriously. It would be irresponsible if we didn't. So we're monitoring as best we can. But I can tell you, we've seen no indication that Mr. Putin has made this decision to use nuclear weapons, and we've seen nothing that would cause us to change our own deterrent posture.
For more on this, I want to welcome Mark Polymeropoulos. He's an NBC News national security and intelligence analyst and former CIA chief of operations in Europe and Eurasia. So Mark, let's start with the attack on the bridge. It was an embarrassment, no doubt, for the Kremlin. And today, we're hearing from Russia's defense ministry that it has appointed a new overall commander for its military in Ukraine. Two other regional commanders reportedly got sacked. Now, can we take this as a sign from Putin that he knows things aren't going well right now?
Well, first of all, Michael, it's good to see you again. And of course, it's a sign that Putin understands things are not going well. You know, the attack on the bridge in Crimea was important militarily because that's how Russia was in fact, resupplying both Crimea and some of its forces in Ukraine. But more importantly, symbolically, President Putin inaugurated the bridge with this famous, he drove a truck across it. It cost $3.7 billion. And what Ukraine demonstrated was that they have reached even into Crimea. So this is humiliating for the Russian military, for the Russian intelligence services, and overall certainly a sign that things are not going well. I don't know if, new appointments and any kind of shakeups in the Russian military will frankly change what is quite obvious to many of us now, is that the Russian military, the morale is broken, the logistics are terrible, and they are losing.
So knowing now that Vladimir Putin is feeling a little bit cornered, this past week, President Biden said the world may be facing the prospect of Armageddon. The president said it's the first time since the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis that has been a direct threat of nuclear weapons being used. That year, the then Soviet Union moved nuclear missiles to Cuba, which is only 90 miles from America. President John F. Kennedy gave a now famous televised speech telling the Kremlin to get the missiles out and telling the American people about the threat the country was facing. Let's take a listen.
Within the past week, unmistakable evidence has established the fact that a series of offensive missile sites is now in preparation on that imprisoned island. The purpose of these bases can be none other than to provide a nuclear strike capability against the Western Hemisphere.
So before Kennedy and Khrushchev struck a deal, the two countries spent the next 13 days really up against the wall of global nuclear war possibility. So, Mark, Putin's threat is real, but this is different from 1962, right? We're not there yet, right?
Right, Michael. I think this is far different. Look, we know that President Biden, during his, many decades of public service, has occasionally ad-libbed some things, and I think that's what happened at the Democratic fundraiser. I think he got a little bit ahead of his skis because really, I don't think the comparisons are apt, and it's quite unfortunate because it almost plays into Putin's nuclear rhetoric. I think the administration has slowly walked this back because ultimately, look, we're going to rely on the intelligence community to provide that early warning. And the fact is our all-source collection, which is, it's human intelligence, it's satellite intelligence, it's communication intercepts. The administration has been clear that nothing has been picked up that suggests that Vladimir Putin is on the brink of authorizing, the use of tactical nuclear weapons. And I think that if that was the case, that we would have these authorized intelligence disclosures. And at the same time, there are open communications channels, whether it's the military to military channel or presumably an intelligence channel, which always has been open, even in the darkest days of the Cold War. So I think that the message is getting through to Vladimir Putin not to use these weapons. So I think a bit of an unfortunate, misstep by President Biden, certainly cleaned up. That's not to say we shouldn't be, worried about the threat of nuclear conflict, but I don't see comparisons to 1962 as very apt here.
All right, Mark Polymeropoulos, I hope you're right. Thank you much, my friend. Still ahead, the NBA's Draymond Green. Yes, we get to talk a little basketball, sucker punching his own teammate, and a not so shocking revelation about a beloved Scooby-Doo character. We're getting into all of it with our culture critics. The Regroup is next.